Hey, it's Debbie, and I want to talk to you today about the concept of imposter syndrome, or really self-doubting the fact that you're being authentic or can do what you say you're going to do. And I'm going to put this into context of the world of energy healing and spiritual coaching and healing, because that's where people start to really have this issue come up and arise. Who am I to practice energy work or be intuitive or to go out and do this? And really, if you think about what imposter syndrome is, or that doubt, it's the tale of two voices. So you've got one everyday voice talking like we are now in the world, doing your do, talking about your work. And then there's another little voice going, you can't do that, or who are you to do that? So that's really confusing, right? These two little voices, one that's leading and wanting to do the work, and the other one that's sitting on your shoulder like the bad wolf, telling you that you're not good enough. That in and of itself says to me, why are you paying attention to two voices? If you're really engaged in your story, in your session with someone, in your healing with someone, or you're passionate, it's about having so much focus and energy on that little voice doesn't even get a chime in. It's like it's drowned out by this beautiful, curious, exciting passion that you have for your topic matter. So that's the first thing to think about is just, really focusing on that front voice of here's what I want to do. Here's the story. Here's the dialogue I'm getting so caught up and excited in that I don't have time to listen to the other voice. Secondly, I want to remind everyone that it is a very raw, exposing thing to go out as an energy healer or as a spiritual coach, because what you're really saying is, I'm not putting a product or a service in front of me. I'm not selling an iPhone. I'm not selling a computer. I'm not selling a financial accounting package or a piece of software. I'm selling me as the ultimate tool, because you in energy healing and coaching, whilst you can get all these beautiful skills, which you should do, you are ultimately the weapon. You are the greatest tool in the toolbox. So there is a very raw, exposing energy around, I have to go out and say, hey, I'm good at this, or I can do this. And it's not about being good at it. It's about saying, well, I'm just going to show up as me, and whatever is right will attract to me, because the law of attraction says that I'll only be able to draw in what I can help or fix or solve or do. So you have to sort of understand that whilst you can have some handrails of tools and processes that you work with, ultimately you have to accept that you are the magic in this scenario. You are the one that's it's connected to the quantum, and you are the one that can only attract what you can help. And that does come with accepting this concept of discomfort. So my most greatest fun quote is, get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, because it will at first, until you try it on like a well-worn suit, and then it starts to get comfortable, and then you realize, oh wow, I'm actually okay at this, and people are getting some results with me. And that leads me to my third point, and that is magic happens in a session. So whether it's energy healing, whether it's coaching, magic happens there, right? So our limited box programmable mind only has so much data and information to impart in a session. And there's lots of cool data and info, and as humans, we're intelligent. We've come up with some great models and processes. And then there's a world of intuition. So if you think of the programmable mind like a box, a limited programmable box, and this world of intuition was like a spiral. It's like it's never ending. It's like you can connect to any amount of information and wisdom. It's infinite and eternal and endless. And so when you realize that you have this access to this greater world that is beyond what you know, beyond what the collective human consciousness knows, beyond what the psychology model knows. And you start to realize that magic happens in a session. And a beautiful colleague of mine spoke about that recently, saying, when sessions happen, no two sessions are the same in energy medicine or coaching or spirituality. Magic happens, and it ignites something that's different and unique in that moment, because no two moments are the same. The time is always moving and evolving. So how do you start to think about moving past imposter syndrome? Here's a couple of things to think about, apart from those concepts I just talked about. One is let go of control, which is the not knowing. It's like, oh, I don't need to control exactly how this session is going to roll out, because if I do, then I'm actually ignoring the fact that magic's going to happen. So we have to start to not know and sit our mind in the back seat for a little bit. Number two, we do have to master our inner critic. So we do have this little voice. We talked about that voice judging you, telling you you're not good enough, etc. We have to start calling that out. I see you. I can see what you're doing. I don't agree with you. And when you start to argue or not even argue, have a dialogue with your inner critic, what that means is who's talking to the inner critic? Because the ego mind's here, the inner critic mind's here sort of having a dig at the ego. Well, who's talking to the inner critic? It has to be the higher mind or the spirit mind, which is your higher self, which is saying, hey, I'm looking down on you, inner critic, and I'm like, I don't agree with you. And so when you start to have this no dialogue, you start to set this boundary. A little bit like you might put a boundary on a friend. No, I'm not going to just, drop everything and help you all the time and rescue you. Or there's a boundary that you're setting, and it's sort of starting to put the inner critic in its box and saying, hey, I see you, I'll call you out. Don't agree with you. You're being a little bit nuts at the moment. So, there, pacify, calm down. I'm going to lead with my higher mind. It's a really good strategy to start practicing. And it really works when you repeat it. Now, the thing is, just going back to that limited programmable mind, really understanding that you have two minds. If you understand that concept of you have a limited programmable mind, which, let's face it, it's brilliant for paying the rent or the mortgage or buying groceries or doing chores. Love that mind. If you want to study another language, it's really good at learning. But then there's this higher mind, this beautiful kind of spirit higher mind that you have at your access, which is so intelligent and so infinite. So when you're starting to jump into imposter syndrome, just remember you can switch minds. You do have this beautiful higher mind. So start learning to trust and know that you have it. It's not like some of us have it and some of us don't. We all have it. It's just whether we exercise the muscle and switch it on. And a little bit like you go into the gym, you don't go in and lift 50K bench press straight away. You have to work up to it. The same thing with the higher mind. You have to start to practice utilizing it. The other thing that I would really tune into, we just touched on it before around imposter syndrome, is thinking about if you start getting imposter syndrome, just remember the universal law of you can only attract what, is relevant or resonant to your energy. So if you've had someone come in for a session or you're starting to work with someone, it means that you can help them. The law of attraction would say you can only attract what is resonant to you. So you have to actually just go, well, I'm not going to disagree with universal law or natural law. This is happening. So there's something that is needed here that I can assist with. And you have to start understanding that these laws are above and beyond your limitations. So start to flow with them more. If you don't know about universal law, then you should do our universal laws course. It's a game changer on how the quantum reality works around you. And the other thing is, there's two more points I want to make. This is an opportunity for you to stretch. If you're feeling uncomfortable and you're in discomfort, that is the way that we stretch. And in fact, positive psychology will tell you that when we stretch, we're more in flow, we can start to grow and evolve. So have this opportunity for you to stretch past this lump, this sort of roadblock that you're having, and realize that you're having some sort of evolution here. And if you can just flow with it and then be courageous enough to sit with the discomfort, you will move past it at some point. And that's a really beautiful thing to remember and to know. And lastly, the thing that I want to encourage you most to think about, and if you're into spiritual work or energy healing work, you're all about the evolution of your shadow or working out what's stuck or shadowy and dark within you. So if imposter syndrome is coming up, then guess what? It's an opportunity to perfectly and consistently work on your shadow. And that is that part of you that's dark or stuck or in crisis or in fracture. I love that word, fracture. There's part of you in fracture, and that part of you is looking for resolution. So whether you're looking into whether it came from your childhood trauma, whether it came from a past life, your ancestral line, cultural, social paradigms, this imposter syndrome issue is asking for you to deep dive into what are your fractures and shadows and how can you work through those? Because if you're anything like me, you really want to work through your shadow and you don't want them shadowing your life for the rest of the years that you have left here. So I think that's probably enough for me today on imposter syndrome. I hope that's given you a bit of an eye-opening into that whole problem. And just so that you know, a lot of people talk to me and say that's a problem. So I wanted to address it, and I hope this video helps you too. Thank you.